Hello everybody, it is Badger Wild, and we are back with another video. Unfortunately, still on the CWAS subject, because this is just a final thoughts video that I thought I would put out here, explaining one of the reasons why I think we're not going to see an engineered CWAS gun anytime soon. For a lot of reasons, it has to do with the time travel and the reaction time and turret speed of the turret, as well as the fire rate. So in that aspect, I would say Aaron is half right with the CWAS fire rate. The problem is there's a big difference between a CWAS Gatling cannon and a Dillon minigun. If you were actually hitting the target with the actual bullets, and you're technically hitting them with the bullet, but you are, how do I say this, increasing the odds of a hit rate and a catastrophic failure within the missile. What should y'all do? Simple answer is I would either, like I said in the last video, have a layered defense, target the delivery system, or outright dodge the missiles entirely. That's the best defenses. The reason why you're not going to see this turn into a CWAS is really in the way a CWAS works. And it's kind of the reason why no normal gun can be considered a CWAS. If it was possible, it would be a lot cheaper to fire a Dillon minigun, because the 7.62x45mm ammunition, you could add a little bit more powder behind it and exceed the range. Pretty similar to the way a 338 Lapua does. It has a 50 caliber charge of powder in the back, basically the same thing as a 50 cal, but instead of having the Browning 50 cal armature or the bullet, it has a 338 caliber bullet, which the reason being is it's a smaller round. It gets the same amount of powder as a 50 caliber, so it takes full advantage of the powder in a smaller round, so it goes way further, way flatter. It's traveling much quicker. So that's one of the things, and you can do that with a 7.62 Dillon minigun, or even a 5.56 Dillon minigun, and it could reach out the same distance. But the reason why this is not a CWAS gun is because a CWAS gun, the GAU family of guns, is actually considered a cannon. And this is where things get a little different. It is not actually a gun, but actually a cannon. So we're going to go over here. We have the regular Gatling cannon here, after that lengthy explanation. Sorry about that. And then we have over here a Northwind Weapons CWIS gun, which operates very much like a CRAM. The actions and operation of this is very good. It is probably one of the best anti-missile systems next to the lasers that you can get. This here has all of the advantages of a CWAS and none of the disadvantages of everything else. So, what is the difference between these two? Well, this is a twin cannon turret. This is a gun turret, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But first, you need to know something about twist rate. And this is something that you, kind of a ratio. If you build guns, I've built 2 AR-15s in my life, and I've shot a whole bunch of guns. This is something you eventually run into, and it's called twist rate. And twist rate goes as such. Let me pull out my character's hand for a moment so you can see what I'm looking at here. So, actually, we'll do this. When you're looking at this, you can see, actually, where is my welder? That would be the easiest way to show this off. Okay, don't have a welder. Alright, we'll pull out the handy welder here. You can see that little target. The 1 is equal to the rotation of the round, meaning that's one rotation on the round. The second number here is the distance the round has traveled, which means for every revolution of the armature in the barrel, it is going 12 inches. Now, this is not a constant. This is just an example. It can be anywhere between so many centimeters. It can be metric. It can be imperial. You can also have situations where it can have different numbers. Some ARs turn at a 1 in 9. A lot do 1 in 12. Some even get as low as 1 in 7. And when you get down to about that area, you start compromising the structural integrity of the round by having the round centrifugal force override the tensile strength of the round. In layman's terms, the round basically spins so fast once it comes out the barrel, it rips apart as soon as it comes out, leaving it pretty much useless. Now, why do you need a twist rate? Well, just like in American football, when you toss your football out there, you need it to spin a little bit so it creates stabilized flight, and that's what makes the ball so accurate. That's why a football player can reach back, see a guy way on down a court area, and just haul off and hurl that ball, because as it's spinning, it becomes almost like a gun. It's like a bullet flying out there. So this will become important here in a minute, but right now a demonstration of the difference. So I got both controls up here. Let's see the regular Gatling gun. And you can see it fire. I would say the fire rate off of this is somewhere in the range of 400 to 500 rounds. So it's not the highest fire rate. To give you an example, an M16 from the Vietnam era can hit anywhere between 600 to 800 rounds a minute. You can get almost 1,000 rounds off a German MG42 light machine gun. So the fire rate off of this is not that impressive. It's not impressive at all. That's one of the problems. The other problem is we're trying to hit a target. I think I ran out of ammo. We're trying to hit a target, a very small, narrow missile with an even smaller, narrow bullet. And you're not going to be able to do it because as you fire, if you notice off the Gatling gun, you are going to see a bit of deviation come into play, and this is something that happens in-game as well. Now, why does it have deviation? Because it doesn't matter how many bullets you fire out of a gun, eventually this thing called multiple recoil takes effect. And that's a kind of a situation as to why the A10 fires short burst. It makes the short burst off of its gun, fires a few thousand rounds at a time, instead of just coming in at high altitude and just dumping ammunition. The reason being is the recoil actually would push back the cannon, and it causes enough pushback that the aircraft can stall out and fall right out of the sky. Yeah, that's how powerful the GAU-10 is. And so this accumulated recoil, doesn't matter how stabilized you make the gun, doesn't matter how strong you put it in there, the amount of shocks, you're going to deviate that a little bit, but you are going to have a mass volley of rounds hitting a target. So it makes hitting something with the CIWs gun next to impossible. But there's another reason why the CIWs works, and this is why it's a cannon, not a gun. Whereas the Gatling guns fire Gatlins, we're going to zoom in here real quick. I'm going to fire off a short burst, tracers, and explosions. You saw that just now. Let me do that again so you guys can check it out. Take a good look at your screen. Fire off tracers and secondary explosions. So what's happening here? Well, we go back to our twist rate. What happens here is that makes a CIWS or a CRAM a CRAM is that when you fire off the CRAM, it fires on the concept of a 30 millimeter miniaturized grenade. So when it fires off its 30 millimeter miniaturized grenade, it's all computer and electronically launched. With the CIWS or with the A10, the GAU is basically firing a impact sensitive round that when it impacts, it'll start punching holes in whatever it's hitting. It's designed to penetrate armor. When you're destroying missiles, you don't have to make a lot of big holes. You just have to make at least one small one and compromise the fuel tank. That's it. That's enough to compromise a missile because of the extreme pressures, and when that fuel, whatever's inside, starts to leak out, or even solid chemical, if it's hit by something really hot that ignites it, this creates a secondary rocket push. You got to realize a rocket is basically just an ignited propellant which is just pushing out of a small hole. If you make another hole in the rocket as it's flying and then ignite it, that's going to create another boost off the side. It's going to be burning the fuel on one end, which will send the rocket off into all kinds of areas. It can also detonate it if it hits the primary explosive in the nose of the rocket. But what happens here is when you fire the CIWS off, It calculates when the missile is coming in, how far the missile is. And thus by the twist rate, meaning it knows how many rotations that round makes when it's going through the air. Let's say for simple purposes, for everyone using a metric, because metric is a little simpler to work with, you have a twist rate of 1 in 40 centimeters. So we know how many centimeters it takes to reach the target. We know how many centimeters it takes to reach one rotation. So you calculate out how far it is, could be several meters. The computer then converts, or basically what happens is, first off, we'll start from the beginning. CWAS detects missile. CWAS system then determines where missile is at and makes a prediction on its trajectory. This is basic gunfighting. What it does differently, though, is it calculates distance to target, and then the calculated distance, it tells each individual round as it's getting ready to load them computer-wise to then turn out to a preset position so that when it reaches out there, and it knows the distance, thus it then converts meters, kilometers to meters, meters to centimeters, and then when you get it down to centimeters, it then calculates how many rotations it needs, which is very basic mathematics. It then, when I say basic, we're talking third or fourth grade math. It's not that difficult. It then calculates out how many rotations it needs to reach the target. Then each individual round is given a program with a small computer chip inside of it. Those orders tell it to go to so many rounds and then detonate the primer. What happens then is when you're firing off a 30 millimeter grenade at high velocity, it goes out to the meter point, or to the distance that the computer tells it to, and once it reaches those many rotations, it then automatically detonates. Spraying shrapnel everywhere. Very similar to anti-air flak guns, where they would fire an artillery shell up in the air, detonate, and ball bearings would go everywhere. Look that up. Those things are nightmarish looking. But it does pretty much the same thing. The CWAS basically fires, creates shrapnel. I don't know how the shrapnel works. This is just stuff I'm trying to figure out now. And what happens is the shrapnel goes off in a pattern, and it drops a whole bunch of these on the area. Well, you've got shrapnel flying all over the place around the missile. Something's going to hit, something's going to penetrate, and then once you have penetration, sometimes you have a pregnancy. No. What happens is you will have penetration on the missile, and something catastrophic will happen. You'll either take out the sensor system, you'll take out the guidance, you'll impact the drive system, and that's basically what's happening here. Is when this gun detects it, it fires off, and then you see all the little explosions happening. This is the missing link to the CWAS gun. This is why they don't work. This is why you can't build a Gatling gun and put a bunch of Gatling guns onto a turret system and make it a CWIS. It will not work without the explosive rounds. Now, in terms of the game, what does this mean for space engineers? Well, it means you can put something like the Northwind Weapons CWAS on here. Is it something you'd want to do? Maybe. If you do, I would suggest the Vanilla Weapons Replacement Pack, because this has the added effect of changing your turret distance from 800 meters to 1500 meters. And we'll change up all of the distances, everything, giving you a much greater set of ranges. Thus giving your new CWAS turret the ability to hit a target and detect it and engage at about 1200 meters. I believe this does the same thing to the missile turret, I think. Let me drop one in here, and we can find out real quick. But yeah, let's see how far. Yeah, so the missile turret now, with the Northwind Weapons Vanilla Replacement mod, it changes the radius from 800 meters to 2500 meters, thus giving your systems much more time to detect it. This does not mean the Gatling gun is going to have any more detection capability. I've done the tests. Even with Northwind weapon systems, even with Weapon Core engaged, even with the Weapon Core replacement, vanilla replacement mod, this will not perform as good as this. This CWAS will reach out, it will kill missiles in a line, and it will take whole sections of missiles out in the process. Whereas this thing will fire and then have to re-engage a different target, and then re-engage a target, and then re-engage a target. This detects it in a line and just shrapnelizes the entire area, sending ball bearings and whatever works with the CWAS 30mm CRAM rounds, whatever makes it work. That's what it does. So, like I said, it's probably not a good idea to waste time and resources on super complex turrets, as cool as they look. I know a lot of people really like that one octopus, crazy seizure octopus one that I made. But the problem with that is trying to hit the missile is actually infinitely harder than just engaging the guy that's coming in with the ship or the tank or whatever. And in the amount of time you could put into building a bunch of guns, you could build several turrets which have a higher probability of hitting a vehicle, could end up hitting, because you got to realize something. The size of the missiles coming at you are really, really small. If you could hit the cockpit of an enemy ship, which is, so like the missile is going to be, let me see here. Let me pull up a cockpit up here real quick. This is becoming a longer video than I had anticipated. But let's just take the basic cockpit here. Your missile, I would estimate, takes up an area smaller than this on the cockpit. This is a 1 meter by 1 meter block inside of Space Engineers. So it's basically 1 meter by 1 meter. The cockpit is 3 meters by 3 meters. This one, and this is the smallest cockpit. The other ones, I believe, are 4 by 3, and that's including the fire cockpit and the industrial cockpit. Mind you, you can up armor the outsides, giving you a little bit smaller target, but you're still going to be dealing with a 3 by 2 area that's still going to be smacked at a, and this is just straight on shooting. So it's not something you're going to be able to fix and fight against too easily. It's infinitely easier to hit this thing here than it is a missile. And I have a sneaking suspicion here. Let me pull up one of these missiles. Here. Where's the missiles? Where's the missiles? I missed the missiles. The small grid missile launcher, if you look here. Get over here. Is 1 meter by 1 meter, but the missiles actually take up only half of that. So they're taking about half of a meter by half a meter. They're about 1/4 the size of this, and I think that's also what helps the missiles dodge the Gatling guns as well. They are insanely small targets, little bitty targets. They're actually probably smaller than the actual Gatling guns barrels are around, with all 6 barrels together. So it's insanely hard to hit these things because they're very, very tiny. Don't go for the missiles in flight. Go for this thing. Go for the cockpit here, because this is what's going to take it out. You take this out, the engineer's out. He has no control. The missiles do not fire. And if you can kill him before he can get his missile shot off, you're doing a good job. Flat gun turrets, quad gun ball turrets work really good for this. Even twin gun Gatling turrets work very well. Or the one semi-complicated turret that I built a while back, which has the 2 arms that it just turns into position and fires. That creates a pretty decent spread and increases your hit rate. And it has the high probability of hitting something valuable. Could take out the missiles launching system entirely, so you could take it out. But it's probably better, like I said, to either dodge the missiles, which they're not hard to dodge. Also, another thing, when you put missiles into weapon core, the missiles don't become dumbfire anymore. They actually become smart missiles, and they will home in and go after you, kind of like an AIM-6 or something like that. But anyway, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. A bit of a lengthy one, explaining all this and a lot of boring nonsense, but I hope you guys enjoyed it and understand just where the community is right now at CIWs. What do I think should be done? I think King could introduce a new type of ammunition and give us the same, because one of the things that's really good about the CWAS gun is you have the cycle ammo mode where you can fire different types of ammunition. I wouldn't mind a way you can put Gatling gun ammo that performs like a CWIS at a greater range. The problem is you would have to increase the range of the Gatling gun so it could acquire the target and then engage it, and you would also have to increase the range of the missile so you wouldn't be getting inside. If this were in vanilla right now, with the 800 meter to 500 meter range of the Gatling and the missile, this would not get in range to deal with this. This would be shredding other targets. If I was playing a vanilla ship with missile launchers versus the Northwind weapon, just the CWAS here, I wouldn't even set the CWAS to engage missiles. I'd put it with depleted uranium rounds and set it to try and chew through the armor until I took out all of the energy systems on board and set it to kill energy or power. Because once that's done, the ship is essentially crippled. It doesn't have the ability to fight no more because there's no power. So you will take out the batteries, you'll take out the reactors, all that good stuff. Whereas with this, if I can, I will just set it to the ship, put a whole bunch of them on there, and add some missiles as backup, maybe some artillery turrets, just so I can shoot at distance. Probably just do a volley artillery fire where I launch a whole bunch of artillery shells at one time, trying to increase the odds of hitting the target and penetration and catastrophic failure. It's just break it, keep shooting it until it breaks, pretty much. But like I said, hope you guys found this informative on the CWASs. It's a good challenge, but it's one that I'm looking at here and I'm saying it's pretty much a dead option. There's no way to do a CWAS that can do any justice in Space Engineers, and there's no way to build a good one. Concentrate your fire on your enemy targets. Don't worry about the missiles. You're going to take a hit. And if you're in a big ship out in space, put enough thrusters on there to where you can lazy loop it around and just dodge. Okay, put more downward thrust than you've got upward than you've got anywhere else. In other words, lifting your ship more than you're pushing it forward. And you can use that by just turning the dial, and then you can just kind of turn and loop around, and you'd be amazed at how much stuff you can dodge with just that simple maneuver. Like Anakin said, spinning is a good trick, and it does work. It's Space Engineers. Anyway, folks, for the third time, I'm going to say I hope you found this enjoyable. I had fun taking this on because I took it as a challenge and learned a lot. And I got to say, with some disappointment, it's not possible to build an effective CWAS. However, it was a good entertainment. Anyway, I am Badger Wildstein. Stay safe, stay frosty, keep the lights on, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye for now.